Thank you.
Okay, Holger, I will, while you reorganize, I will give you a short introduction. These days, it's really hard to find a large corporation who is not doing some kind of innovation lab. It's a way for them to break free from their factory-like operational focus and demonstrate, especially to their owners, that they're forward-leaning, investing in innovation, and trying to beat the competition. Holger claims that this obsession with innovation labs is driven by the fear of missing out, or FOMO. They are afraid of missing out on talent, business opportunities, or maybe owning the next big idea. Holger works as a strategic experience designer at Levelgreen in Berlin, and he will claim that one of the reasons why these efforts are failing is the general inadequacy of design thinking. And I'm really hoping there's going to be a rant going on right now, so we'll see. Here to talk about the flaws and the pitfalls of corporate innovation, please welcome Holger Eggert.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the great introduction. So I want to talk about corporate innovation. Quick show of hands. Who here works in some way or form with innovation? Raise your hands. That should be most of you. Who here works at a large corporation? Who here consults large corporations? Great. So at first I want to take a huge dump on corporate innovation, and then I'll tell you what to do instead. Okay? Cool. Corporate innovation. I've been at many of these places, and the usual pattern is always the same, I'm afraid. Management or the board or whoever decides, we need more innovation, whatever that may mean to them. They're like, oh, we're not innovative enough, we need more innovation. So they start an innovation lab, and they hire people, and they're like, you need to show us the future. You need to be our innovation driver, you know. Don't be constrained by real world things, and you need to be really creative and show us the way. And then they do, and then they, for example, define new features for a product or something, and then they go back to the actual teams working on these products, and they're like, hey, we had some cool ideas. And they're like, you think we couldn't have thought of that ourselves? Let us show you how the real world works. And immediately they hate each other. That's not helpful. And also, when the board announces, hey, we launched an innovation lab, what happens is everybody else in the company thinks, okay, I don't need to be innovative anymore. What kind of signal is that to the other employees? Hey, we don't expect innovation from you anymore. We got a lab for this. So please, please don't do this. That's not helpful. So what to do instead? My name is Holger Eggert. This is the part in the presentation where the speaker announces his or her credibility. I do this for over 20 years now, and always try to be with technology that's still coming up. So remember when touchscreens became mainstream? I did my first touchscreen project in 2001. Remember when voice is now ubiquitous? Everybody's doing Alexa skills and whatnot. I did this, not with Alexa, of course, it wasn't around, but many, many, many years ago. And by seeking out these quote-unquote new opportunities, I got to deal a lot with innovation labs at large corporations. Some of these corporations, you may have driven their cars. Some of these corporations, you may have used their phone service or whatnot. And I'm not naming names because I'm telling you what's happening, and I don't want to anger them too much, I'm afraid. They start these hubs, or they want to build ventures or something, and then for some reason it doesn't really work out. And that's not good. They wanted to build ventures, and instead they made an innovation lab, and then nothing happens. And everybody who works there, we never wanted any of this. I wanted to build ventures. I thought I saw a venture brought to life. It was small and it failed, but it was funded right. It showed me what it was to cry. Nothing's where it used to lie. My innovation has run dry. That's what's going on. My corporation, I'm all out of ideas. This is how I feel. It's cold and I am shamed by my co-creation. Innovation never turned into something real. Design thinking never helped my collaboration. Now it is too late for my corporation. Thank you. You're spoiling me. Keep it up. So that's not good. So what do you want to do instead? I brought a few slides, not that many, but if you've seen me speak before, these are the most slides I've ever had. When I talk to corporations like this, hey, we want to do innovation, whatever, there's many ways to slice and dice this. The one I found the most helpful is this: where does the innovation come from and where should it go? Like source and destination. So if the innovation comes from something external and you want it to stay external, set up a startup fund. Invest in startups, be smart about what you invest in. Once you invested in it, leave it alone, let them do what they want to do. Done. If the innovation comes from somewhere external, but you want to internalize it, that's a topic for M&A, mergers and acquisitions. You want to be smart how you integrate these people. You don't want to confront them with your corporate culture too much, but then again, you want it to work out. So that's a lot of adjustment. We'll talk about this in a second. If you want innovation to come from the inside of your corporation, internal innovation, but you want to externalize it, that's what an incubator would do. You have ideas from internally, either way where they come from. Many companies I know, they do like idea challenges or something. That's a great way to get everybody in the right mindset and get them to bring their ideas forward. And then you can build ventures out of it. That would be what an incubator would do. Or if you expect the innovation to come from the inside internal and you want it to stay internal, that's business transformation. So empower your teams, enable them. Don't build a separate innovation lab to do the internal stuff. You already have cool people. Let them do this. There's another way to look at this, and you have seen something like this probably already. Why, what, and how? Why do you want to do it? And after you figured this out, what do you do, and then how do you do it? And the classic adage is, if you make a mistake with the why, you won't fix it with the what and the how. So that's what I want to talk about, and I want to start right to left. So I want to start first with a how. How should you be doing this, or how do you do stuff like this? And when I talk to these people, I used to say you need to be more agile, and then they're like, oh, we already do Scrum. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. You need to be agile. You need to be quick on your feet. And they're like, yeah, we are already doing Scrum. And I'm like, you're not getting it. And they're like, okay, I think we're done here. That's not good. So what I do instead, this is probably the most complicated slide I'll have today. I take a whiteboard or a flip chart and I start drawing this. I first draw the axis, speed, and maturity. And then I have a chat with them about it. You need to be quicker and you need to be more mature in what you do. Call it mature, call it smart, whatever. So in the top left corner, you don't have the speed and you don't have the maturity. That's the swooning repose. Business as usual and nobody cares, and that's that. And They don't like it, but I usually say, hey, you are here, down there, bottom left corner. Sorry, but that's where you are. So you need to ramp up the speed and you need to be smart about it. You need to be more mature in what you do. And you need to be very careful that you try to do both at the same time. If you just ramp up the speed, you will have chaos. If you just say, okay, we do what we do, but we need to do it quicker, faster, etc., then it'll be chaos. If you say, we just need to be more mature in what we do, we need to be smarter in what we do, that's the recipe for standstill. Then people are like, okay, we need to be really sure what we're doing. We need to do 3 months of user research before we try anything. That's not helpful. Then nothing happens and it takes ages. And I've seen corporations, one large one, I always joke, their PowerPoint template, when they start a new project, there's a set of slides already in the template, and one of the slides is like a timeline, what is our project gonna look like time-wise? And in the template, this timeline is set up for a year. The idea was you adjust the timeline to what you actually need, but that didn't happen. People were like, okay, the template says a year, I need to fill out this year. So every project took a year or longer. Not helpful. If you ramp up the speed and you are smart about it, then you get to what I call conscious velocity. Then you have the speed and you know what you're doing. Why do you need to do this? Why do you need to be quicker, faster, etc.? The reason is you want to lower the stakes. In a typical large corporations, when does anything get done? Usually someone has an idea, writes a proposal, goes to his or her manager, and the manager only will approve it when they know, okay, how much will this cost me, how long will it take, and what will I get out of it? So you already define the outcome before you even started the work. That's not agile. So if you tell a manager, hey, I want a few months or a year or whatever, and I want a huge amount of budget, I don't know yet what will come out of it. That's also a difficult discussion to have. If you're quicker, if you say, I want something to do for a week, I want to do something just for a week, and then we'll see where it takes us. And then maybe another week, and then maybe after we figured, okay, this has legs, the idea is okay, then we invest maybe a month in it. Then you get the speed. Then you get to what I call conscious velocity. So how do you do this? You've all probably seen something like this before. Build, measure, learn. I say, change the way you work by doing meta work. Treat the work you do, the process you have, the department you have, the organization you have, treat that as a product. That's when people talk about building an innovation machine or something. If you want to call it that, fine with me. Treat that machine as a product. So you build it, you measure what you're doing, and then you learn from it, and then you iterate. Not just with the product, you probably do this already anyways, but with the way you do this, with your setup, with your processes, your team, etc. Build, measure, learn. And I always say, you can't go faster than you can learn. So if you want to be quick, you need to know what you're doing, you need to learn from it. And you've all seen startups maybe. My favorite example is Meerkat, who did this live streaming video thing before Twitter had the same idea or brought the same thing to market. And they launched at South by Southwest and were very popular immediately, huge. And then 2 weeks later, Twitter launched the same thing, more or less. And another 2 weeks later, nobody heard about Meerkat anymore. That's not helpful. And why? Because that's my theory. I don't know people who work at Meerkat. Sorry for bringing you up especially. But my theory is they had huge success and didn't really know why. Why does it work with people? Why do they do this? So they didn't learn enough. And you can be faster than you learn, and then it'll fail. So You can't go faster than you can learn. Work on your learning. If you want to be quick, if you want to be fast, learn faster. I call it Holger's Law, by the way. Write that down, put it in a frame, hang it on your toilet if you want, and send me a photo. Okay, that's the how. You want to be quicker and you want to be smart about it. You want to be mature about it. I sometimes talk to companies about, you probably heard the term maturity model already. There's a design maturity model and a technology maturity model. I have one as well. If you're interested, later when we do questions, ask me about it. I can tell you in detail. So if that's the how, then what is the what? What should you be doing, or what do you do in these situations? In any typical product or innovation, these three things, you know these graphics probably already as well. Business, technology, and customers, or some people call it design, but same deal. Business, technology, customers. If the business is right, then it's viable, then it's a good idea to do. If the technology is right, then it's feasible, then we can actually build it. And if we work on the customers, sorry, that's the wrong way to put it. If we work with the customers, then we can build something meaningful for them. In the past, it was called desirable. You may remember that term. I much prefer to call it, it's something meaningful to customers. And for each of these three areas, you can set up goals or KPIs. For the business would be growth, for technology would be performance. Can the thing we're working on actually do what it's supposed to do? And for customers, it's satisfaction. Customer satisfaction, unfortunately, is a trailing indicator, so you only know if they're happy way after you've done the work, and you only know if they're not happy way after they already left your product, but that's the best indicator that I know of. And when I show people something like this, in their head immediately they go, okay, we need to structure our team into 3 departments: the business people, the technology people, and the customer people. And I say, no, don't. I don't like functional departments. I know one company that has functional departments and it works, and that's Apple, and that's the big exception to the rule. And just because it works for Apple doesn't mean it works for everybody else, because Apple does so many other things differently. So I don't like functional departments because usually you start infighting. I know there's a business consultants agency who have 5 or 6 or 7 departments, and they call it cohorts. We have technology people, we have UX designers, UI designers, strategic designers, we have product managers, we have project managers, we have venture architects, yada, 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 yada. And it's an easy sell. When they approach clients, they're like, we have experts for all these fields, but don't let your team suffer just because it's an easy marketing for you. Because what usually happens is you have a lot of infights over who's responsible for what, who has ownership over what. The final decision is then made by the product people or the design people, and that's, oh no, you don't need that. Or I've seen one case, there was a designer who saw this as a big, great opportunity to just avoid doing any work. Anything he had to do, it was like, oh no, that's something else's responsibility. That's not good. So hire different people with different roles, of course, but put them in one team. That's enough. And then what you do is, a goal will inspire you, but a process will enable you. I always say a process is the best thing you can invest in. And that's a very simple example: ideation, validation, commercialization. So first you have a smart idea, hopefully, or you gather ideas, or research in order to come up with ideas. Then you validate, does this idea have legs? And then you can bring it to market. And as an example, what I set up at one incubator type initiative like this, they brought me in to ramp up the design team and write processes and whatnot. They said, hey, for validation, how about we take 5 months to really validate an idea? And we talked about it, and that's not good, because building ventures, it's a numbers game. You need to try 50 ideas, and then you have one that actually worked, and you don't know upfront which one will be the, I don't know, startup people would call it unicorn, the one that goes through the roof. So you want to do this faster so you can try as many ideas as possible. So I said, not how about 4 months, how about 5 months, how about 5 weeks? And then sometime later we slowed it down to 4 weeks even. So week 1, we said, let's do a design sprint. That's a great idea to start a project. You probably know design sprints already. I always call it like a bad Western movie. Shoot first, ask questions later. Then you know which questions you actually need to ask. And especially with car companies, they know this metaphor of just-in-time delivery or just-in-time work. That's cool, they understand this. And the design sprint, the beauty of it, it's not only that you come up with something very quickly and fast and cool and do user research in the form of the interviews, even during the first week, but there's a lot of meta benefits as well. If you bring a new team together to work on something, for 1 week, very intense work, everybody in the room, they get to know each other very quickly. You don't need fancy warm-up exercises or whatnot, just they work together. They see each other, how they work. That's cool. And also, if you work with new people, you can build reputation very fast. I call it political capital. If you, I don't know, at one point you need harsh discussions. Is this really a cool idea? Shouldn't we do something else? Or how do customers think it will work? And if you do this up front, they're like, no, it's already a cool idea, we just need execution. After they've seen you work for a week, and you build a prototype in 1 day, and the prototype's cool, and you did user interviews in 1 day, and the results are cool, or doesn't mean users have to say yes to everything, but at least the results are helpful. Then you gain political capital. And then after this week of them seeing you work, then you can have very difficult discussions, and then they listen to you. So that's week 1. Then week 2 and 3, work on these 3 things. Business, is it viable? Technology, is it feasible? Design, is it meaningful? And then bring it back together. Okay, we looked at it from 3 different angles. Now when we bring everything together, what do we get out of it? And usually in the last week, I like to do, for example, in large corporations, then you need to get funding. I like to do a pitch deck because everybody thinks they can present, but no. Or we do a project plan. Okay, for example, technology feasible. During these 2 weeks, we let them write a project plan. How would we actually develop this and do tests for critical things? So afterwards, they can estimate, okay, roughly how much effort, how many people, how much time, etc. What roles do we need? What technology stack, etc. Then you have answers to all of this, and then you can comfortably say, okay, if we want to go forward, then this is the right thing to do. And after each of these steps, ideation, validation, commercialization, large corporations would call the stage gates. Of course, after each of these steps, you need to have a very long, hard look at the thing you're doing. Is it okay? Is it worthwhile to continue or not? And the reason is all these things. You want to be quicker on your feet, you want to be mature about it, you want to be smart about it, you want to work in structured processes like this, which you, of course, iterate, build, measure, learn. The idea is you back yourself a little into a corner, because if it works out, you actually have to do it. I've seen so many cases where people had a good idea, then they did, I don't know, design thinking workshops and whatnot, and then, yeah, it's all fine, and you know design thinking, the first step is empathize, and then they did the empathy, and then they, yes, we're done with empathy, and then nothing happens in the end, and then it's where people call it innovation theater. Or yesterday somebody called it management entertainment. Yeah, don't do this. Do this instead. I call it bring your idea to work day. So what you set as a target is what you will design towards. Choose your targets wisely. My recommendation would be start with growth, performance, and satisfaction. Over time, you will, of course, develop your own targets. Yeah? And then you can do innovation. Then you can ideate things, validate them, and bring them to market, and hopefully start ventures. And again, back yourself into a corner so you cannot get out of it. Otherwise, it's theater. And I've seen cases like this. I've worked with people who had an idea for a long time and they were very adamant and, oh, this has to happen. And then we argued because the idea was not necessarily the best idea in the world. And then at one point, one of them slipped up. He admitted something he maybe shouldn't have admitted. He said, yeah, if it works or not, I don't care because I'm on a track to a management career anyways. We may build this venture, but I'm not going to jeopardize my career. I'll go to management anyways. That's not good. Would you design if I taught you to think? Can I just say design thinking is the worst? This whole idea of getting people to think like designers, if managers were good at thinking like designers, they would have become designers, you know? And when companies ask me, hey, should we roll out design thinking in our organization? I always say, don't roll out design thinking, roll out designers everywhere where they're necessary. One thumbs up, thank you. That should be Holger's law. Don't roll out design thinking, roll out designers. Would you design if I taught you to think? Or would you laugh? Oh, please tell me this. Now would you start a venture for me? Or rather work on your career? I can be your innovation. I can kiss away the tears. I can change a corporation. You can think design for me. So why do you want to do this? Standard answer, you should know this already. If you feel like you're not innovative enough, then do something about it. If you feel like everything's going great, fine. But then again, you should be billionaires. And if you're not, maybe something like this helps. Don't do corporate innovation just because it's the hot thing to do these days. That's not helpful. So I'm not going to tell you why you should do this, but I want to tell you why you should do exactly that. So we talked about the how. You want to be faster and quicker on your feet and be smart about it, be mature about it. And the what. I always prefer to work on processes. I think this is much more helpful than other things. Do that. And why do you do this? This is the idea of strategic design. You work on the product strategy and the organizational strategy at the same time. And this came from the Helsinki Design Institute, I think 2011 or 12 or something. They developed this whole idea of strategic design. And the idea was, in the past, design agencies came to large corporations, did a great product, very nice and innovative and everything, delivered it to this corporation, they brought it to market, and then it died down because the organization wasn't ready for it. On the other hand, business consultancies, they go to large corporations and they change the whole organization, left and right and up and down, and the product's still bad. That's not helpful. You want to work on both at the same time. If you build something innovative, you need an innovative organization. Yesterday, someone mentioned Trojan horses. Great, treat that as a Trojan horse to change your organization. And I wrote Serendipity strategy. That's something you want to do. If you ask people who did very innovative things and you ask them, where did this idea come from? It's rarely from a design thinking workshop. It's usually I had an idea in the shower, or I was on a train ride and the door stuck and then I did something. I don't know. Ideas can come from anywhere. The best way to enforce this idea of serendipity, or Bob Ross would call it happy little accidents, you know? You smoke a joint, you draw a landscape, and then you draw a tree, and then you make the next tree. And you don't make mistakes, you make happy little accidents. You know Bob Ross, right? The original Afro? Okay. You can, thanks, you can enforce serendipity, of course. Earlier today somebody talked about work out loud. That's one idea. Get people to mix in the organization. Switch up teams every once in a while. Bring people from very different parts of the organization together. You will not know what comes out of it up front, but afterwards, somebody has an idea but didn't know what to do with it. Somebody else needed something, and all of a sudden you brought them together, and hey, that's serendipity, that's cool. So, make innovation everyone's responsibility. Don't build an innovation lab. That's the Trojan horse from me to you. I talked about corporate innovation. In essence, what I explained to you is how to empower teams. So, you already have cool people, ideally. Do that instead. Don't build dedicated innovation labs. Empower your team. Remember, faster, more mature, with the right process, back yourself into a corner. Make innovation everyone's responsibility, and you will build a ship. And hey, I made a ship for you. That's the idea of, what's his name? Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. The guy who wrote The Little Prince. You know him? He said, don't gather people and distribute the work and tell them what to do and try to make a ship like that. Instead, gather people and teach them the yearning for the open sea. And they'll build the ship themselves. That's the idea. And when you do this, then you will be innovative. Then you can do corporate innovation. And then the people who work with you, they like it. And that's what you want. I go to work in the morning light. My manager asked me if I am all right. She's never seen me having oh so much fun. It's corporate innovation. I go to work in the morning like my CEO asked me if I am alright. She's never seen me having oh so much fun. It's corporate innovation. Oh, corporate innovation. I got the process done. Innovation theater is gone. What in the world is so much fun? It's corporate innovation. Oh, corporate innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Holger Eggert. I had a lot of fun today. I hope you did too. If you have questions about this is my email address. Write me. I'm here all day. Let's talk. Also, this is me on Twitter. I would love to be a friend on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever you prefer. So I thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you. I mentioned maturity models earlier. You ever heard of this idea? Yeah. I have developed my own maturity model, and it's very simple. Imagine a ladder with 4 steps. how do projects typically happen? The lowest step is the execution. Yeah, the project is being done. The step above is facilitation. Okay, how do we go about it? And maybe you have a moderator or something, or a team lead or whatever. The step above that is project setup, staffing, funding, everything else. And the highest step is the decision. Okay, maybe we should be doing something. Yeah? So in the actual order, somebody somewhere, usually board or directors or whatever, decide, yeah, we should do this. Then they staff the project, staffing, funding, etc. Then facilitation, then the execution. And my maturity model for design is always, when I ask managers, of these 4 steps, at which point do you bring in designers? One person's nodding. Just for the execution? That was maybe more in the past. These days, facilitation, yeah, sure, designers somehow know how to do fun workshops. Let have them do it. Do you bring in designers when you staff and fund your projects? Do you bring in designers at the top when you actually decide what initiative to do? Coming in? Yes. That's how I tell people to measure maturity. And you can do it with this as well. If you imagine these 4 steps, at which point do you let go? At which point do you let your team just do cool stuff and be fine with the outcome? That's why I like processes so much. If you have a cool process, whatever, if people go about it the right way, if it's cool, then something cool will come out of it. If not, well, you tried, you did the right work in the right way, and that's fine. Okay, you asked for it. Everybody else will hate you. You want something I wrote, or you want something funny? Funny? 2011, so 7 years ago, I gave a talk at a design conference about how to do projects, and I compared it to Disney songs. Like every Disney movie has in the beginning a song they call the I Wish song. So if you want to spoil yourself watching Disney movies, just listen to the first I Wish song, because that's how the movie will end, what the main character wishes for. And then after the talk I said, hey, I may have an I Wish song myself. This is more about design, but you will get the idea. Oh, user, how was I supposed to know what you really wanted? I did no research, and now I'm afraid it shows. I need a mental model. Show me what you want it to be. Tell me, user, 'cause I need to know by now. My wireframes are killing me, and I won't achieve usability. I'm sorting cards till I lose my mind. Give me a sign. Hit me, user, one more time.